Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Dr. Danielle Zalaima, and I am Associate Professor at the Centre for Behaviour Change. And I'm just going to be setting the scene for today and giving you a bit of information to hopefully prompt any questions that you might want to ask us. So we'll be leaving plenty of time for questions towards the end of the session. So a little bit about what I would like to cover in this presentation and why I'm mentioning it for you today. So firstly, I'm going to say a little bit about who's here today from our team, and why we've invited those people to be here. I'll talk a little bit about the team more generally and who's involved in delivering our programme. And of course, as part of that, I'll talk a little bit about the Centre for Behaviour Change, which is where our programme is nested. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the program itself, how it is made up of different modules, what that looks like, and how that looks slightly different depending on if you're doing the full MSc program or our PG certificate or PG diploma. And then I'll talk a little bit about the entry requirements. All of that information is on our website, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. But what I will talk a little bit about, which might be helpful for some people, is what our successful applicants tend to look like, what kind of characteristics they have. And then, of course, we'll have plenty of time for answering any questions you have, hopefully dealing with them today, and if not, pointing you in the right direction for that. So as I said, I'm Danielle Zalaima, and I'm going to be leading this webinar today. The webinar would have been led by Professor Leslie Gutman, who is the Programme Director. Unfortunately, Leslie's had a family emergency, so can't be here today, but she sends her best wishes and looks forward to seeing many of you in September. But who we do have today is myself, and I'll tell you a little bit about my role in a moment, but I'm heavily involved in the programme. I lead the teaching for all of the core behaviour change modules on the programme, so I'm really, really lucky in my role. I get to work very closely with the students, really get to know people, why they're on the course and what they're hoping to take from it. We also have Sophia here today, who is the administrator for our programme. So Sophie will be able to answer any questions you have around the administration of the programme, admissions, electives, things like that. And I'm also really pleased that we have Janina and Shruti here today. So Janina was a student on the programme, I think 2 years ago, Janina, and is now having a fantastic career, which she'll tell you about. And we also have Shruti, who is right in the middle of the programme now, so is in a brilliant position to tell you all about how it's going, how her experience has been, what perhaps is different to what she expected, what she's enjoying, any tips, etc. So I'm sure a lot of your questions will be answered by Janina and Shruti today. But in terms of the core programme team, as I said, Leslie Gutman is the programme director, and Leslie's responsible for the overall management of the programme. I lead the teaching for the core of the programme. We also have lots of fantastic lecturers who contribute to the programme, one of which is Dr. Lucy Porter, who's heavily involved in the programme and is listed here. And then, of course, we have Sophia as well. So we're the core team, but of course, we have the rest of the Centre for Behaviour Change feeding into the programme and contributing their experience and wisdom as well. So what is the Centre for Behaviour Change? Many of you will know about the Centre. That might be the reason you're interested in this programme, but I'll just tell you a little bit about us here. So we are a team nested within UCL, and I suppose we have two core missions in all of the work that we do. So the first mission is to increase the science of behaviour change, so to really understand what we know about how we behave, why we behave, how we influence behaviour, etc. But also, and perhaps more importantly, is actually to translate that learning. So how do we upskill people and build capacity in how to change behaviour in many different areas of application? Because of course, behaviour is everything, it's everywhere, and we need to support people to use our tools to enable behaviour change for positive change. So we're a small but powerful team, I think, doing lots of different things. So a lot of research going on in the centre, but also, as I said, lots of teaching and training, building capacity in different areas around the world. So we work with lots of different teams, lots of different disciplines. We run lots of different events, all centered around those two key challenges. So build the science and translate the science to the people that need to understand it the most. So that's the centre. What about our Behaviour Change MSc programme? So if you take our MSc programme, you will come away with a really strong understanding of behaviour change theory, evidence, and application. And this will set you up with not just the knowledge to go out and understand these things, but also the skills you actually need to do these things. So how do I understand a behavioural problem? How do I identify behaviours that need to change to contribute to an improvement in that problem? How do I actually make sense of those behaviours, drawing upon theory, evidence, understanding the context in which those behaviours sit? And then how do I use all of that information to develop interventions that are likely to be effective, acceptable, scalable, replicable, etc.? How do I put all of this into practice? And then how do I evaluate and learn from those things over time? So you will come out with lots of different skills in all of those areas of the behaviour change process. So now, of course, you will be doing a research project for your MSc, which I'll talk about in a moment, but that in itself will build your skills in being a behaviour change researcher, which will be helpful in many different careers that you may choose to pursue. And as well, you have a lot of flexibility in this MSc. So as I said, behaviour is everything, and people want to learn about behaviour change for many different reasons. So we will support you to apply the core of that learning to whichever areas you are particularly interested in. That may range from health, sustainability, social change, many different areas. And you'll have the chance to customize your learning in accordance with that. And that will be through a number of mechanisms. Firstly, through the electives that you choose, and I'll talk a bit about those later. Secondly, through the research project that you choose to pursue and the supervisor you choose to work with. But also in terms of your choices around assessment topics, the topics you work on in class, the group presentations you do, there's lots of opportunity to really tailor your learning on this programme. And of course, we try to offer as much as we can beyond the core teaching. So you'll be allocated a personal tutor, you'll be invited to career seminars, social seminars, lots of extracurricular events. So that's our programme. That's what we're trying to achieve with our programme. And I'll talk a bit more in a moment about how we do that. So this is just an overarching view of the UCL kind of academic calendar. So for your masters, you will have 2 taught terms, so terms 1 and 2. That will be kind of taught modules with a reading week in the middle. And then in the 3rd term, that's when you'll be completing your assessments for term 2 and also pursuing your research project. So there will be less contact time in terms of teaching during that period, but you will still be a full-time student on the programme, working with your supervisor to complete your projects. And here's just an overview of the high-level structure of our MSc programme. So you can see on the top line there, we have the core of the programme. So these are the modules you need to complete as a part of this MSc. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these modules because I want to save plenty of time for questions. You can find summaries of each of the modules on the website. But you'll have a module around interdisciplinary approaches to behaviour change, which will look at how different disciplines can work together to enable behaviour change. You'll have a double credit module on behaviour change intervention development. So this is where you're going to be building a lot of those skills in actually developing and evaluating interventions. You'll have a module on the many theories and models that underpin behaviour change. And we'll talk a lot there about how well we're doing with theoretically understanding behaviour and how we can perhaps do better with that in the future. And you'll also have a research methods module. So that's the core of the programme. You will then have a choice of 3 electives, and as I said, that gives you a chance to tailor some of your learning to your particular area of interest. And then finally, you will have your behaviour change research project. And you can see on the right-hand side here some illustrative examples of the elective modules that we offer. Now, I will say that we cannot guarantee places on any particular electives. We are relying on what is running each year and how many places we have available for our students. The only elective that we have full control over is the health and wellbeing elective, as that's led by Professor Leslie Gutman, who is the programme director. But this gives you a flavour of the type of electives that we will be offering next year. And just in case you're not planning to apply for the full MSc programme, there are also 2 other ways to engage with this programme. Now, the first is the postgraduate certificate, and that involves just completing those 3 core behaviour change modules. So the intervention development module, the theories and models module, and the interdisciplinary approaches module. The other option is the postgraduate diploma, and that involves completing everything I just talked through except for the research project. So you complete those core modules and you complete the 3 electives, but you don't complete the research project. So that's the 3 different ways you can engage in our programme: the full MSc programme, the PG Cert, and the PG DIP. So in terms of entry requirements, you do need to have a 2-1 or an equivalent in a behavioural or social science discipline. And in your application, we're really looking to understand why you want to come to this programme specifically. So what is it about this programme that appeals to you? What is it about UCL and the Centre for Behaviour Change that appeals to you? And how does that align with what you want to do this degree for? So what your future career plans are, what your goals are in terms of behaviour change. So do really make that clear for us and show us why you're applying to this particular programme. And in terms of the people that we tend to select on our programme, and you're going to meet 2 of them in a moment, always will have met or exceeded those academic requirements, will have a background in social behavioural sciences, typically will have some research experience and some professional experience. Now, this does not necessarily mean that you need to have had lots of kind of work experience, but you've got some applied behaviour change experience, either through an internship or an employment or even a volunteer role, something that's given you some sort of experience of what behaviour change looks like and the types of skills you will be building upon in this programme. And then finally, and perhaps particularly importantly, we really want to have people on the course who are passionate, who are motivated, who are really committed to the programme, really want to apply behaviour change for good in the world and make a positive social change. So we're really looking for that in people's personal statements. So hopefully that's helpful just to give you a flavour of the programme itself, what we're looking for and the types of students that we have on our programme and what we can offer you as an MSc course. And I'm just going to put here our general email address in case you do want to follow up on anything said today, or in case we run out of time for questions, then you have that email address there. And I know Sophia's going to pop that into the chat as well. So that's all I wanted to say for now. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for the moment. So if you do have a question, do pop it into the chats. You know, any question that's coming up for you from listening to the presentation or that you had beforehand, do just pop it in and we'll start to work through those. Perhaps while you're having a think about that, I could just ask Jadina and Shriti to share some of their kind of journey with the MSc program, why they decided to take the program, how it's gone for Janina and how it's going for you, Shruti. So, Janina, shall we start with you? Oh, I think you're still muted.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. I can unmute myself, so apologies for the delay.
That's
So hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I very much remember being part of this call there sort of 2-3 years ago. Found it really helpful. So to introduce myself, I'm Yanina. I currently work as a behavioral science consultant on a freelance basis at the moment across projects in the private and public sector. And so my educational background includes a bachelor's in economics, and it was during a placement year where I started sort of exploring this world of behavioral science and meeting behavioral scientists, talking to people who then turned out to have done this program. And the whole world of behavioral science really opened up to me, and I learned about the COM-B model and found it so fascinating and how widely applicable it was. So that's my sort of entry point to starting to discover more about what this program is about. And so I applied to the MSc and was very fortunate to get a place. And that was during 2022 to 2023. And it was a fantastic program, one of the best decisions I think I've made for my education. And yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about my experience on the program and also my experience now as a freelance behavioral science consultant.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Shruti, are you happy to share some of your experiences so far in the program? And yeah, I appreciate you're really in the thick of it at the moment. So it'd be good to hear, your honest appraisal of how it's going and what you're enjoying, any tips that you would like to have known about this time last year when you were in that application process. So.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So, hi everyone, my name is Shruti, and as Daniel mentioned, I am in my term 2, and we just have a few weeks of teaching left, which is, I know, I feel like every master student always says this, but time really does fly by fast when you're in this course. And I'm really looking forward to starting my research project soon, which is with Danielle. She's such an amazing teacher, and I was just so glad that I also get her to supervise my project. I feel like my journey so far with this course has been one of the most enriching experiences because I feel like apart from engaging with everything to do with behavior change, I feel like all the career seminars we've had, all the opportunities we've had to interact with, visiting lectures with people who are already in this field. Like we've had some seminars where people have applied behavioral science in the Met Police, some who have worked as behavioral scientists in the civil service. And so there's really been I've had the opportunity to gain and learn from so many people from such different backgrounds and hear such different perspectives, and that's like really opened up and helped me decide where I want to where I see my career going with behavior change. I did do psychology before this. I did a degree in psychology at King's before this. And what got me interested into the program was when I took a year off and I was just doing a bunch of research fellowships with TESO within the UK government. And we were looking at a lot of focusing on non-clinical interventions. And that's when I came across the idea of the behavior change framework. I started digging up a bit more on this, and I found out that UCL, UCL, of course, offers this course, but the people who've been the pioneers behind making such frameworks are actually the teaching staff at UCL, like Susan Mickey and Robert West. And I've had the opportunity to attend seminars by them, and it's been such an amazing experience. So yeah, I'm just really glad that like Yanina mentioned, I think this is one of the best decisions I've made for my education. And it truly is such a tight-knit community. I've been in touch with Yanina like way before this. I remember when I was just joining the course, I'd sent her a message on LinkedIn and asking her how the course is and like what I should expect from it. So yeah, our course, I might be a bit biased, but like there's 30 of us and there's people from not only are you learning from like lecturers who have such different experiences, but you're also learning like from your peers. I've got a course mate who's a dentist and she's doing a PG cert in behavior change. Someone's been working in consulting for so many years and has come back to do this course. So it's really wonderful. It's a very tight-knit community and everyone's so supportive, and I'm truly, really happy to be on this course.
Thank you so much, Sweetie. That's really nice to hear. And I think you make a really good point there that I didn't mention, that actually one of the amazing things about this course is the people that come on it and the way that these people become connected. And we now have, I think, over 200 alumni members who have completed the course, and there's an amazing network that have come from that. I know there's lots of, firstly, great friendships that have been formed from the course, but also just an amazing network of behavior change practitioners and scientists who are in contact, who support one another, who share opportunities. We've had some brilliant alumni meetup events where we've got together, and it's just been amazing having people from, we're currently in the 8th year of the programme. So we had a big meetup last summer, and it was just amazing having people from every single year of the course just being together and hearing what everyone's doing. And, it really echoes what you're saying, Shruti, that it is bring all these interesting and fascinating experienced people together and learning as a team. We also learn so much from the students that come onto this program, the different ways in which they want to apply behavioral science, the different contexts, the different challenges they might face. And so it really is a two-way dialogue there for sure. Thank you. I'm very surprised to see there's no questions in the chat yet.
We've got some questions.
Okay, I can't see any of the questions, Sophie, so you might have to read them out for me.
Okay, so the first question is, am I a suitable applicant if I want to pursue a career in academia and do a PhD?
Great question, and absolutely yes, you'll be a wonderful applicant for the programme. So we've had many students take our MSc and go on to do PhDs. We actually run a PhD panel every year that has those PhD students coming to talk to current students to give advice on how to pursue a PhD after the programme, tips, experience sharing, etc. So yes, we've even had people go on to do PhDs in our team in the centre. So absolutely, this is an applied programme, but of course it's a master's, it's an academic programme, and we will absolutely set you up to be a future researcher if that's what you want to do. So yes, definitely apply if that's your interest.
Thank you, Danielle. Next question, would you consider consumer marketing relevant experience for behaviour change?
I think so. I think you should, I'd recommend tailoring it to behaviour change methods. So how have you got experience in perhaps developing interventions, understanding behaviours, understanding kind of target populations in that particular context? What did you learn from that? How might you apply that to future applications of behaviour change outside of that setting or in slightly different contexts? So yeah, I think so, but I would certainly tailor it to the behaviour change process more generally.
Thank you. Next question is, typically how many hours per week are you expected to attend class as a full-time and as a part-time student?
Yes, it's a bit of a tricky one for me to answer, and I might throw this back to you, Sophie, but I can comment on the core modules. So typically the core modules run on Tuesdays and Thursdays, although we're yet to pin down the timetable, so that's not definite. And they run for the mornings on both of those days in term 2. They run for most of Tuesday in term 1. Of course, you also have your elective modules around that. So, it could be that you're required to be on campus every day, depending on what electives you select. So, and of course, it's not just about the time you're physically in the class. The way we run the core modules, there's a lot of preparation work, a lot of consolidation work. So, it's a big commitment to do an MSc, and I would definitely kind of take that on board as you think about your plans. It's not to be taken lightly in terms of the amount of time it will take you. So that's my perspective. Sophie, did you have some more kind of concrete answers to that?
Yeah, so as a rule of thumb, each 15 credits is roughly roughly about 2 hours, minimum of 2 hours face-to-face each week. So if you study part-time and you decide to do 2 modules each academic term, it will be 4 hours a week.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 hours per week per module, depending on what that module is, and different electives will run quite differently. I mean, Shruti, I'm not sure if you're probably in a good position to maybe comment on this. So in terms of your week-to-week time on campus at the moment, what does that look like? And, you know, what any tips on how someone might plan ahead for the kind of commitment the masters would take?
Yeah, sure. So term 1 was quite hectic and demanding because so you can take 3 electives, and I decided to do 2 electives in term 1 because I wanted to really dedicate a lot of my time to the research project in term 2. So on term 1, I was on campus every day from 9 a.m. till around 4 p.m. Of course, like it would depend on the day, but that's just because I was doing 2 electives at the same time with my core modules. This term, it's just Tuesdays and Thursdays. Of course, as a master's student, I mean, when I was an undergrad student, there was a lot of reading, but with masters, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of prep work for the seminars, but I think it's really helpful as well to just have that. So at least like for the modules that Daniel teaches, we've got some mini videos that we watch, some like prep work for the seminars. But I would say either ways, whatever time that you do spend on campus in class, it's actually quite enjoyable because you're not just there watching a lecture. There's a lot of like group work that comes in, that goes into it, and you're always paired with different groups like every class, so you really get the opportunity to talk to everyone, and there's a lot of like critical reflection that goes into it, and so it's really enjoyable. It's like a very collaborative experience, not just you sitting and like watching a lecture. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. And that's absolutely right. All of the classes are very interactive. They're not just you sitting there kind of listening to a lecture. That's something we do put a lot of thought and attention into. Yanina, I know it's probably a little bit a distant memory now, but would you kind of agree with that overview of the breakdown in terms of your time commitment and time on campus? Any other tips?
Okay, thank you. So I don't think I can unmute myself. Yes, so from my memory, I really appreciated how flexible and interactive the whole setup was for the timetable. So similar to Shruti, I also took a heavier workload, let's say in the first semester. But I really appreciated how within the seminars there was group work, there was a lot of opportunities to ask Danielle and Leslie questions and also learn from the people around you, because as Shruti mentioned, it's a very interdisciplinary cohort. So I think in my cohort we had people coming with a psychology background, economics, also I think international development, or a whole range. And it was a really, really fascinating learning environment to be in. And so if I speak to then the research project, perhaps this will come up separately with a question, but that was a really valuable opportunity to develop skills that I haven't been able to develop before. So in economics, I came with a quantitative background. With my research project, I learned more qualitative skills and was able to work with a charity, communicate hands-on, collect my own data, do interviews, surveys, and really be able to then create a research project that had sort of real world impacts. And that was a really sort of fond memory of mine that I really, really enjoyed. Yes, sorry. What was that?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. So let's move along. Because I'm not sure exactly how many questions. I want to make sure we get through them all. So yeah, Sophie, what have we got next?
So would you so why is our course different from a behavioral science course?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I mean, the truth is these terms are used in lots of different ways by different people. So people will have different definitions of them. I would say what makes our course a behaviour change course rather than behavioural science course is that we're really looking at that intervention development process. So we're not just looking to understand what causes behaviour or how we understand behaviour. We're looking at that in the context of applied intervention development. So of course, you know, we absolutely cover the theoretical understanding of behaviour, but we're really understanding that through the lens of trying to use that within an intervention development framework. And so a lot of the learning will be focused on moving through a step-by-step approach to really understand how we make sense of behavioural problems, how we define and identify specific behaviours, specific populations, how we then use the science, the behavioural science, to understand those behaviours, but then how we kind of map that understanding to the intervention development process, how we think about implementation. So we cover a lot on putting interventions into practice and what we need to be mindful of in different real world settings. And then of course, evaluation as well. So in terms of outcome evaluation, so did we actually change behavior, but also why and how did we do that? So process evaluation. And so I think that's the core difference there, in the sense that we're not just looking at the science of behaviour, we're looking at how we translate that and how we put that into an intervention development pathway. So that's my perspective on the differences. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Thank you. So the next question is, do we, on behaviour change, do we just look at a certain age, or do we look at a age range, or do we just look at adults?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I would say we really focus on the methods in this course, and there's nothing to stop you applying those methods to any behaviour, to any population, including different age ranges. We focus a lot on understanding behaviour in context, and what I mean by that is really understanding who are the people we're asking to perform this behaviour, what context are they sitting in, and what impact does that have on the approaches we might take. So absolutely that could be applied with children, for example, all sorts of different age ranges, and we could certainly cover particular, I suppose, requirements that you need to keep in mind for those different things. I think on that note of focusing on the methods, I don't know if Shruti or Yanina wanted to comment at all on that particular approach and how we support you by not necessarily going through every possible behaviour in every possible population, but how we kind of give you a toolbox, hopefully, to allow you to apply that for different purposes. Yanina, I know that you're out there doing that at the moment, so perhaps you're a great person to kick off there.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is one of the key things that drew me to the program in the first place, was that the focus is on a lot on the principles of behaviour change and designing behaviour change interventions. And so one of the aspects that I've taken into my work is that ability to be flexible and using theories and models like the COM-B model, the theoretical domains framework, as some of you may already then know, as sort of thinking tools that helps us structure our approach to a problem. Because what I've also found moving into the sort of applied space is that, you know, we can be very creative with the projects that we work with. And so understanding or looking at the context in which we're working and being able to draw on different tools, different disciplines, different theories to help us create a very contextualized approach and solutions that meet the needs of the client has been really key. And I would really recommend taking that creative approach and being very open-minded then as well when you move into the program, and then also beyond it, or any extracurricular activities that you do, having that open-minded approach. And when it comes to looking at other disciplines, there's like human-centered design, systems thinking, which I believe there's opportunities to do on the course then as well, in depth, really to make the most of that. And so, yes, much more than going into any one theory or model in depth, I think it's really that understanding how to think about behaviour and use the tools, the theories, the models that are available, all those frameworks, to look at a problem, a challenge that you're facing in context. And I think that will, yeah, land you in good stead moving forwards.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move along in the interest of time. So what's the next question?
Electives for the students. So what electives did you take and what did you learn in these electives?
Yeah, brilliant question. So Shruti, are you happy to kick off with this one?
Yes, of course. So I took the health and well-being elective, which is taught by Professor Leslie. It covered a lot on things like the different levels of intervention. So we learned about how to, in the context of health and well-being, so using behavior change to help with substance abuse in a school level intervention, for example. Then we looked at community level interventions, population level interventions. And the assignment for this course was for this module was actually pretty interesting because we were given the opportunity to come up with our own intervention, which of course we applied a lot of tools like the logic model, etc., stuff that you will learn in this course. But I think it was just we didn't just have to write an essay, but it was the opportunity to come up with something that we were passionate about and develop an intervention to address that. So the health and well-being course is part of the module is part of this course. And then I took well-being in buildings, which was very interesting. And that's part of the Bartlett School of Architecture. I remember when I was deciding to do my undergrad, I was contemplating between doing architecture or psychology. I'm glad I chose psychology, but I guess I got to fulfill that dream of mine by taking a module within this department. It was very different, and the students that were on this course were, of course, they were students with backgrounds in architecture. But again, the coursework for this module was so interesting because we conducted an experiment by ourselves, collected the data, then we wrote a report on basically how to increase well-being in indoor spaces. And the module that I'm taking this term is making policy work. So that's part of the international policy department. Again, it's so interesting. I feel like it really ties in with the behavior change course, which focuses a lot. You will definitely be learning about policy making as part of the core module in this course as well. So I'm really able to, find similarities between all the three modules I've taken and really apply that learning to this course, because you might know the course also focuses a lot on you have the opportunity to explore different aspects like sustainability, etc. But then there's also a focus on health and well-being. So I was really able to, find parity between the health and well-being course, the well-being in buildings course, and now with policy making as well, I'm able to, yeah. So those are the three courses I took. And there's a bunch of modules you can take. A lot of my course mates are doing things like decision making, which and some of the modules are focused more on using quantitative expertise, which I lack. So I decided to, choose the three electives that really interested me. But you'll definitely be having the opportunity to interact with people from completely different departments and, really develop a way to think from their perspective, which really helps, in an interdisciplinary course like behavior change.
Amazing, thank you. That's really helpful. Yanina, I know you've already mentioned some of your electives. Did you have anything to add that we haven't covered already?
So there's a couple of things that came to mind while Shruti was speaking as well, and what I would recommend. I mean, I can give a bit of context. When I came into the program, it was off the back of my bachelor's and an industrial placement, and I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do after the master's. So I was very open to exploring a lot of different pathways. So the approach that I took was to actually really use those assignments and the different practical exercises that you can do in the modules to explore a variety of my interests. And so if you're then someone like me, I think that it's a really fantastic opportunity that there is such flexibility. So I wrote assignments on sort of job design in my modules, looking at nature connection in relation to health and well-being. Different topics across sustainability and health and well-being, I would say. So if you have a specific interest, it's great that there's so many opportunities to pursue that, but also to explore more variety of projects that you can then draw on when it comes to applying for jobs or talking about your interest in interviews. You can really then draw back and use those examples in a really practical way. And so that is one point that came to mind. Another one, I'm not sure if then it's still the case this year, but I believe there were people who were also able to audit modules. So even if you weren't able to get on a module, but you were really interested in it, I think people were able to, message the lecturers and say, is there any chance to be able to attend the seminars to learn from them? So I would really recommend, as a principal sort of approaching the masters, is to look for those opportunities and create opportunities for yourself. So whether that's academically speaking, exploring those topics, your masters, but also then in practice. So there are so many extracurricular activities that are available with the Behaviour Innovation Society, for example, which I was a part of, where you can really apply what you're learning in practice and also get to know people from different courses. And that really was really helpful for me when it came to moving then on into that applied setting and in professional context. Because I think employers really do look for those practical experiences, whether you've got some in a professional context, but also those, if you go and volunteer somewhere or you find something in a very local context. So yeah, I really recommend that to anyone, is make the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, I think there's some great advice there. So in terms of auditing, yes, it varies from module to module basis, but you're always welcome to ask the module lead if they have space for you to audit a module. And basically, as Yanina said, that means kind of sitting in but not taking the assessment. So it's an extra learning opportunity. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Behaviour Innovation Society. So basically, I mean, there's a couple of things to mention there. There's the society that was set up by our MSc Behaviour Change students, which runs lots of different kind of practice projects across the university applying behaviour change. So that's an amazing extracurricular opportunity. We also have the Behavioural Insights Exchange, I think it's called, which is a chance to partner with your for your research project with an external organisation. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved in extra things that gives you practice, experience and connections as well. So I'm really glad that you mentioned those things. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the question list, Sophie, please.
So question is about assessment. Do we have a lot of written exams, or is it actually assessments, or is it practicals?
Yeah, another great question. So the answer would be very mixed. We try to have lots of different assessment types so that we give people the chance to develop and assess in different ways. There's very few exams. I think one that I'm aware of, although of course assessments do change from year to year and it would depend on what electives you choose. We have some traditional coursework such as essays, but we also have a lot more applied assessments. So we have group presentations, we have intervention development portfolios where you actually go through the end-to-end process of developing an intervention using the Behaviour Change Wheel. As was mentioned around the health and wellbeing assessment, that's a protocol where you get the chance to actually develop an intervention using theories and frameworks from the module. We've also had an assessment this year where you get to respond to a funder that you're pitching to for funding for a behaviour change project. So we really try to make the assessments reflective of the skills that you will need if you are a behaviour change practitioner in the real world. So we try to do a mix and we try to make them as meaningful and applied as we possibly can. I'm mindful of time, Sophie. So shall I carry on with the questions, or shall I get the student perspective?
Carry on. We got about 3 more minutes for questions and
Cool.
then student perspective.
Brilliant.
One of the questions is the mixture of students. Is there a lot of mature students? Is there a lot of undergraduates that have just finished and straight away doing a postgraduate? What's the mix like in the class?
Yeah, another brilliant question. So It's really mixed, and as guys were saying earlier, that's a real strength of the program, because we get lots of different types of people, both in terms of their background and what they're interested in, but also in terms of their career journey. We get some people straight from undergrad. We also get people that have been working for many years, either in behavior change or in a related field. We get a real mixed age range every year. So there really are lots of different types of people on this program, and I really think that's one of the best things about it. So yeah, a real mix. So obviously it varies year on year, but we always have a few people in each of those categories every year.
Next question is, are we expected to source our own research project?
Yeah, another great question. So we have a list of research projects for you to choose from, and that list is created based upon the supervisors available to supervise. That's the majority of those supervisors are people from the Centre for Behaviour Change team. So they will be projects related to research going on within the centre or research interests of those particular supervisors. As I mentioned, there are also opportunities to be matched with an external organisation. That's something that you have to apply for, and not everyone will be successful with that, but it's an opportunity. We also do have some projects that are linked to proposed by particular students. So it is possible for you to come to us and say, I would like to do this type of project. And in some cases, we can match you with a supervisor to do that. So it really depends on what you're interested in doing. We do our very best to give everyone a project that they're excited about and motivated by. But a lot of the projects on offer will be aligned with the Centre for Behaviour Change research streams. So I would recommend having a thorough look at the CBC website if you haven't already, and really get a sense of who's in the team, what kind of work is going on, what kind of research, etc.
I think the next question is for me. It's an
Okay.
admissions question. So what is the time frame or the turnaround of from applying to acceptance? So generally speaking, admissions can take up to 10 weeks to reply back, which is 2.5 months to reply back to you to confirm if you've got offer onto the degree. The reason can be various different things why it's taken the 10 weeks. It could be your references not correct. So students have before submitted references that are not from an institutional email address. So that is very important to understand that if you've put 2 references, one's an academic and one's your current manager, if you're working, it has to be from their work email address. It can't be a Gmail, it can't be a Yahoo email address. It has to be from their work email address. So that does hold up applications. Also, when you're doing your personal profile, when you're doing your profile, just make sure you've put everything there as much as possible. Remember though, do not put 5-6 pages up, but put as much as possible, because admissions go by what you say. We don't know you, so we want you to tell us who you are, what you want to do in the future. So we want you to try and explain it as best as possible, because admissions go by that. If there are some anomalies with that, admissions may contact you to clarify things, so the process could then take longer. I think we just got time for one quick question. It's thinking ahead, which is always great to see. Do you recommend any reading prior to starting the degree?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I definitely don't think you need to engage in long reading lists as we build up to the start of the MSc. I think reading the Behaviour Change Wheel paper, which I might be able to pop into the chat in a moment, would be a really good kind of starting point. So that's just a journal article that you should be able to access easily. There are also the user-friendly guides to the Behaviour Change Wheel, which are available on the Centre for Behaviour Change website, which will be a really good starting point for you to consider in terms of the methods we'll be teaching on this course and the principles and practice of behaviour change that we really represent at the CBC. But I think CBC website and looking at the resources on there would be a really good starting point. But beyond reading, I think the best thing you can do to prepare for this MSc is really spend some time thinking about why you want to take it, why are you here. As the guy said earlier, this will go so quickly. No one believes us when we say that, but every year it absolutely flies by. So just be really clear on, what do I want to get from this? How am I going to really squeeze everything I can out of this experience? What extracurricular things do I want to get involved in? Who might I want to work with at the CBC? What do I want to be doing this time next year when I finish the program? What kind of jobs do I want to apply for, and what's going to set me up to really be in a good position to get those jobs? So I think it's just as much around kind of thinking and planning as it is around any kind of reading. But I would definitely recommend the user-friendly guides as a starting point, which you can find on the Centre for Behaviour Change website. I don't know if Shruti and Yanina want to share any kind of tips in terms of getting ready for the programme, anything that you wish you had done, or anything you wish you had had in mind at this point in your journey with the MSc.
I can start if you like. I think one thing that I would really encourage people to do that I guess is different aside from sort of any readings and thinking about your personal goals, but I would say the whole behavioral science community is very, very welcoming, very generous with their time and very kind. So one of the things that helped me actually decide on the program, and the master's was the only one that I actually applied for, but it was talking to current students and people who have graduated to help understand what career paths are available, because actually it opened up my mind. There are so many different pathways you can go down. People work in the civil service, they work in consultancies, and they work as freelancers in NGOs. So there's a whole range of paths, and so it's very non-linear. And I would recommend that if you find people on LinkedIn, you find their career path really interesting, like reach out to them. Not necessarily everyone will reply because people are very busy, but there are a lot of people who are very happy to give you some insight into the roles that they do. So if anyone who might not be too sure on what they want to do, but I would recommend that, because also for me, one of the things that I was curious about was, I saw so many interesting career paths, and I often saw people with PhDs. And so one of the things that I thought, I was like, gosh, do I need a PhD to sort of go into behavioral science? And I realized through talking to people, you really do not. There are so many pathways where you can make the most of the experiences that you have. Yes, so I would say, yeah, make the most of reaching out to people if you do have particular interests.
Yeah, I think that's a really good advice again, because as has already been mentioned, I think people are very open to being contacted by people applying for the program, considering what might be a good fit for them, finding out what those people are doing. And yeah, as I said earlier, the alumni community is just amazing, and I know there's been so many great relationships come out of that, and lots of kind of professional support as well. And you guys will just become part of that as you progress through the course and into the future. Shruti, did you have any kind of final suggestions or tips for preparation?
I agree with Yanina completely. I feel like actually that's how I did find Yanina as well. Like I just looked up on LinkedIn the people who had done this course before, and I connected with them, and I found all of their career trajectories have been so different from one another. Yanina herself, like I believe you do podcasts where you like interview people who are in this field, and that got me really interested. I remember I had come across this one podcast of Renu. She's working in the UK like health and security agency, and I just found her work so fascinating. So I think just like more than academic reading, just go online and see what behavior change is all about. There's so many. It's a growing field, and maybe that's why people recognize the challenges, and that's why the community is so supportive. So yeah, just try and understand like what the course would entail, what this subject is really all about. We had a seminar with Susan Mickey recently, who founded the Combi model with Professor Robert West. It's always a pinch me moment when she comes to deliver lectures, because I'm like, I read all your papers before this, and I was so intrigued by the work you're doing, and now you are here like speaking to us. But she basically said that, people are constantly performing different sorts of behaviors. I behave, you behave, everyone's behaving in different ways, and we all have different mental models of the way people behave. But the thing is that a neurosurgeon is the only one who knows how to, operate in a certain way. So she was basically saying, like, I don't understand why everyone thinks they can change behavior. And like Daniel mentioned, this course really equips you with models, with a toolkit that allows you to change behavior in a way that's very like evidence-based. Like basically equips you with the skills to successfully enable efficient change in behavior. Like you get the opportunity to empower people, and I think that's the most like powerful aspect of this course. It's like the philanthropic side to it. So yeah, just have like genuine interest, and I think the rest will follow.
I think that's a really nice note for us to end on.